It's very good to be able to take part in this tribute to Eric. I got to know Eric in Beerville in 1996 with the workshop for the African pollen database. And I always remember how quickly Eric got on his feet after his alarm went off. That tells you something about his discipline and commitment and motivation. Um, but in any case, what I would like to talk about here, sorry, this thing is it going on automatic? Don't know what's happening. Let's just go back. In the background there of my title page, you see a site in the dry parts of Africa. That is Extienfontein. You will see it on the left there, where the location is. But this map is supposed to show you the few sites we have in the arid parts of Africa. It's nothing like what I saw this morning in for the European database, where they have absolutely fantastic data. But you can see, especially towards the west, how few sites we have in this dry parts of Southern Africa. I just want to discuss basically the pollen problems we have with pollen in these dry lands. And I'm not going to try to make any reconstruction or anything, but just to give you an idea of the problems we get and what the potential is for the future. If you look at the on the blue sides of that rainfall map, from that area, you do have lots and lots of other sites, and I'm not going to touch on them. Just focus on the drier parts. So this is a list of a number of sites. You can see we've got quite a few different types of sediments that we can use. There are unfortunately very few lakes. I've listed there two, Lake Ngami and Tshwang. I'll just briefly say something about that. And there's spring organics, where lots of work is being done on. And then stream deposits, sometimes the streams and the spring deposits are sort of mixed. And then, of course, cave deposits. And there, one of those is the Hyrax dung deposits. And sorry, these are excellent things, and I'm not going to talk too much about them, but they are actually very good in these dry areas. I'm just going to stick more to some of the other types of sediment in caves, like stalagmites and so on, and also coprolites and the fine cave fills. Now, this is Lake Ngami. It's an interesting place where it's sort of seasonally flooded from with water via the Okavango, and we could sort of core it, and we have this reconstruction, and here friends of ours like Brian Chase and Manuel Chevalier helped us, but you can see we had to use different ways of interpretation because of the problem you have with the transport from long distance transport, and then the separation of local elements from the regional pollen from the area and the savanna, surrounding savanna. And yeah, and you can see that on the map there, where the the Okavango actually feeds from where it feeds the lake in Ngami. Okay, then another lake is the Tshwine Crater Lake. What you see here is a pollen diagram with these massive gaps. And this is a long 90-meter sequence. The big gaps are probably areas of previous mega droughts or big drought events that worked its way back into sediments and oxidized pollen. So, and if we now, I think if we look at what the future holds for instance, those sites in Botswana, like Magadi Pan and so on, I suspect you're also going to have big gaps like that you have that you can see here. Okay, then the other sites that, excuse me, that we work on are the spring sites, for instance, Floris Bad. Here, the problems are really tied to the spring architecture of the spring. Excuse me, this thing is just jumping. Sorry.
No worries, take your time.
Okay, I'm just going to get that way. Okay, so you have this massive spring mound. It's known for its hominid fossils and lots of fantastic fauna. But you can see here, for instance, the Holocene dark layers here. They contain pollen, but of the same age. On the picture on the right, you see the red layers, and they are of the same age. So you've got this tricky situation where it's very difficult to interpret what is going on, because there's because of the local elements in the sediments. So together with the fossils, you also have coprolites and so on that have pollen, and was quite useful. But and then you can see the different kind of environments in these surroundings of the spring. These springs are normally situated on edge of big pans or playas, and you can see here the it can at some stages be very grassy, and then you can also get the local vegetation on the pan floors and so on, which normally are halophytes and so. So when you try to interpret this thing, you see you've got the spring mound, and this is a reconstruction by Toffolo et al. Of what happens in the spring mound, excuse me. And you can see sometimes the pan has shallow water, sort of indicated by these little blue lines, and sometimes the water is at the spring site, and sometimes the pan fills up, and you get massive amount of water, like this overflow of here at this part of the section here between 100,000 and 40,000 here. So you can imagine that every situation here in a certain sequence have quite a complicated pollen source problem, coming from long distance in the pan, or from the environment, or and then also again the local vegetation. So you get this kind of spiky pollen diagram, and many of those spikes are probably not related to to regional climate, but just simply local changes in the architecture of the spring mount. So these are problems we have. Another case is this kind of deposit when we go much further south towards the Karoo region and on the edge of the fynbos. Now, from the mountains, the Koga Mountains, there you have the stream coming out at Uniondale, and it forms this big lip of sediments. And here again, you have to consider that your pollen comes from up in the mountain mainly, and but so if things happen up there, you can quite reconstruct it quite well. But the problem, of course, with deposits like this is that you again have these massive sort of gaps where you have more mineral-rich sediments, and the pollen only in the organic layers. And then, of course, you have the cave deposits, and here again, you have to use a variety of different sediment types. There are coprolites, and then the stalagmite. The stalagmite actually turned out to be very promising, but it's not rich in pollen, and of course there are other stalagmites deeper into this cave of Wonderwerk Cave, and if you go right a bit further back, just beyond where those people are standing, then the pollen concentration in the stalagmite there is much lower. And it's probably just a question of the wind transporting pollen into the cave, and it gets settled out before it really reaches the stalagmite.
Couple of minutes.
4 minutes.
Couple of minutes, yeah.
Okay. So yeah. From all these different types of sediment, we have different sequences, and I can here compare it with the insulation curve, and you see there is a general similarity, or a general sort of response that compares well with the insulation curve, which actually gives you an idea of what the summer rain is doing. And but still there are lots of deviations and so on. So from these different sequences, I think you can actually use the differences to perhaps eventually find out what the mechanisms are that operate here to control the climate. So, and there's normally when you look at the weather reports, weather forecasts in South Africa on TV, you normally see during the summer rains, when the summer rains are falling, you see a diagonal cloud band, and that band is probably something that shifted as the precessional process continued. You can actually see how that diagonal pattern is reflected in biomes. So I think eventually, by looking at having more and more of those sequences, we will be able to reconstruct the method of or the mechanisms of the climate change much better. I think, yeah. So to conclude, I think the future potential that we'll ever have a very nice story from the drier parts is not so good. But Hyrax dung is actually an excellent thing, and I think most potential is lying in there, because it gives you a very direct reflection of the vegetation in cave shelters. Other types of deposits are there, but they're not so good. And yeah, and then of course, much of this work has to be done by using other proxies. And for instance, to tell you when we have winter rain and when it's summer rain. So I think that's all. Thank you. I must maybe just also mention all the numerous people that helped me with the work in the arid parts of Southern Africa. Thank you.